right, good morning, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming today to this session. There will be times in the session, we do have additional microphones set up for this session, but if you have questions that you're asking and someone else, because some of the things we may have to defer to the provost's office to answer, excuse me, because we do not have the answers, and most likely none of us have the answers for a lot of things, but we're figuring it out. Then I will be repeating it because we do have some people who are coming in through the Zoom session as well, who couldn't actually be here on campus due to other obligations. We are recording today's session. We are also going to be recording the Canvas 101 session and the other tools session. I'll look at you. You go. Yes, right. Teacher's pet right up front. Bonus points. So I will make those available as soon as possible. We laugh that we should do like CTL Netflix and have episodes and like see our usage of that and have you all like binge watch, right? No sports, so we have to have something, yes. This was your vision is not going blurry. The pictures are not really clear here, but it's funny that someone sent me earlier this week, so we wanted to just be able to share since we all love Canvas so much. I was like, who would have thought? So today's session, we are going to kind of go over an overview of some things. We are not going to get really technical into the tools because we do know that there are people with various expertise when it comes to some of these tools, but we want to give a bigger picture and think through and set the context and think about some best practices for you all to be thinking about as you're preparing to teach remotely. With this, I'm going to turn it over to Al, who's going to kind of set the context for us.
You think back to that first Monday in January when we started the spring semester. Would you ever have thought, looking ahead, that on Friday the 13th in March, we would be having this conversation? Somebody has made the observation, well, let's put it off and have it on April 1st. That might be a better position. What I'd like to do is one of my words that I use quite often is the term context. I want to give you a perspective of context as you think about how you're going to proceed with your classes. First term, though, is scope. Our conversation with you today is focused mainly on undergraduate face-to-face classes. We don't want to get into the conversation of how is an art instructor going to have students do work when they don't have the software, or how is an engineering student going to do it, or how are you going to go into John Smith's Chem 2 class and perform an experiment with certain chemicals that are not, should we say, household products. So we're going to try to stay within the conversation to support this group. And by the way, I think it's quite interesting. We joke at times about the back row people. We're blessed to have balcony people, which is, I hope, a step above or below, whichever way you want to put it, of back row people. One of the classes I teach is project management. And to say this is a project is an understatement. And the way we take a project is we break it up into certain parts. The parts are people, places, time, resources, and technology. And what I would like to do is walk through each of these items and make some observations to say to you, think about this. We're not right now wanting to talk about tools. I'm not a fan of here's the tool, now go use it. I'd rather say to you, what is an application that you need to accomplish? What is an event that you need to happen? And let's find a tool that will help you do that. That's the perspective that we would always like to promote. Let's start with people. That's one of the few things that doesn't change. It's you and your students. We're not making any changes from that perspective. Now the question is, I know my students, now they're going to be remote. How do I look at that? And one little asterisk here, so to speak, is Accessibility. Hope will talk more about it later on. But any student that has the requirements to have met to deal with accessibility, those continue on. And there will be support from various places, including the Success Center relating to that. Let's talk about place. You've been blessed since January in many cases to walk into a classroom and it's showtime. You have the students there, you're ready to deal with it. Now, who knows where they're going to be? We are keeping the dorms open. Randy Bolden may make some comments about that later, but the dorms are being kept open. That does not mean that you can call your 9 o'clock class to come to class. We're in the online business right now from that perspective. Time. You, again, as I've referenced, deal with the clock in many cases. You're not dealing with a clock anymore. You're dealing with a situation of, in a sense, when do I start? When do I finish? That type of a conversation. Let's look at a schedule. The new unit of measure is not hour, it's whatever you make it to be. As in, you deliver resources to them, how you deliver that, how long it takes. For example, here are my questions. We're not having academic activities the week following next week, what I will call the second week of spring break. We're not having classes. There's no academic events going on. How are you going to make that up with your class? Are you going to take the next week and say, I'm giving you a double dip worth of this? Are you going to spread it out over the rest of the semester? How are you going to deliver your content in a timely manner? How do you decide that? The assumption right now is, who knows? I joked in the earlier session, is Mary Emily going to have the opportunity to direct the first virtual graduation at Lipscomb University? That's a possibility. At this point, we know for sure that Teresa Miller will want her grades submitted by you on that Thursday at a certain time, or you're going to get yelled at. You know, that will be a guarantee. But prior to that, we have a potentially final exams regularly, or are final exams going to be handled by you in a virtual world? When are we returning to school? Who knows? It could be after 3 weeks. You know, this is a very fluid world, to say the least. But you have the opportunity now to take your class and ignore the clock and provide the material to these students in such a way that in some cases may be easier. In some cases it may be very hard. It's interesting to see. It will be interesting to see. Resources. First thing is, think about your syllabus. Look at everything that's in your syllabus that you assign a grade or associate a grade with. For example, do you have a participation grade in there? I can look right here and say, Jim Thomas is taking notes, great. He's paying attention. He's got an excellent participation grade for today's activities. How do you adjust for that in a virtual world? So how do you do that? Attendance. You know, I've seen people with attendance requirements that are all over the map. How do you now assign an attendance grade? I say that to say, look at your syllabus and rethink how you're going to come up with the final grade in context of this change. Course content. We are not asking you to eliminate anything out of your class. We're not saying you decide what's important and then drop everything else. I don't think I could find anybody, I'm looking around for a lucky victim of whatever, that would look at me and say, oh, I teach 3 weeks of stuff that doesn't serve any purpose. I just wanted to do it. No. You are the expert in your field, and it is your responsibility, your opportunity, your challenge to determine how you are going to deliver and what you're going to deliver. We're not asking you to water down any activities. You have to potentially modify make some adaptations, or however you want to use that terminology. Here's the way I will say to you. We are now moving into what is called instructional continuity. How can you continue your class? How can you continue what you've already covered the preceding weeks? That's the challenge, not anything in the way of throwing something away. We will offer tutoring resources through the Success Center. They are still working on that. I know biology has had tutoring options, math does, various others. That's to be delivered to you in a foreseeable future. They are still trying to put that together themselves. Technology. First thing, do not assume all of your students are blessed with broadband internet. There are people not many miles from where I'm standing that are not blessed with that technology. I would encourage you to make contact with your students sometime in the near future. Hello, how are you? We're going to make some changes. By the way, tell me what kind of connection you have or what kind of technology. Are you going to be able to connect? We don't know. We have no idea how to answer that question at this point. But that impacts what you're going to try to deliver significantly. Please be aware of that as a factor as you think about various things. You get into a situation of where somebody says in engineering, you need to have this software. You need to have access to this instrument. Those are conversations that need to happen at the college and or department level. I think of the world of your many tools that you play with in the way of the theatrical world, the animation world, art. Those are conversations that have to be addressed at a different level. We're just trying to go the big picture presentation relating to that. We have the exciting technology called email. That's how you're going to work. That's great. You can communicate by email. We have Canvas. I'm not getting sick. Okay. We have video capabilities such as Studio, Panopto, Zoom. I wish I had a roll of toilet paper for every time that word has been used in the last 2 or 3 days. Okay? We're not going to go into great detail, or should I say, Hope is not going to go into great detail of how to use that. We're providing other options for that activity. What we're trying to say is we want you to think. We want you to put the context of your class and say, here's what I need to do. How can I best do that? And for each one of you sitting in this room, that's a different answer. We are blessed with a lot of people in this room that are already doing activities in a remote way. Instead of them going on a mission trip, they may adopt you as their mission now. That would be one way to describe it. We have a lot of people that are ready to help. Obviously, Hope and I are ready to help. So your challenge is to decide, what do I want to do? And then we'll move forward from that. Thank you. Oh, one other thing. Please make sure you autograph one of the sheets before you leave. We collect that for professional development material. Thank you.
Extra credit for that.
He wants to know if he gets extra credit. Isn't that a typical undergraduate?
Yeah. We laughed and said that maybe we should start offering help for rolls of toilet paper, apparently. So I haven't been to the grocery store in 2 weeks, so apparently I've missed out on a whole bunch of stuff. So thanks, Al, for going over some of those things. Some of the things I'm going to go through are the best practices to think about. So at this point, there are a lot of assumptions and a lot of things like we don't know. We don't know what this is going to look at. As Al mentioned, right now we're planning on continuing the semester with the same exam schedule at the same time that you're going to have your grades submitted. So, thinking through, we don't know what it's going to be looking like for you when it comes to planning, and so we've got to be able to be flexible in this. My first recommendation for all of you all, as you're thinking about your plan, is check with your department. There are a lot of decisions that are going to have to be made at a departmental level. And so making sure that you all are in alignment with what that plan is. If you know there are 10 sections of college algebra, making sure that all those instructors are on the same plan for continuity purposes. Shout out to my math people there. Number one, communicate with your students right away. Okay. A lot of them, just talking with some conversations yesterday with some of the students, you know, they have a lot of fear about this and the unknown. They come to campus for a reason. They love the community here. You know, as a Lipscomb University parent, I know my child loves this community, and like the email said, I can move right back into the dorm on the 30th. And so that's his mindset at this moment. Not about the extra week of spring break for him, but about using that time to get back on campus. Make sure that when you're communicating with your students, let them know that, you know, and have a consistent communication plan with them of like, these are the tools that like right now I'm planning on using. This is how I'm going to communicate with you. I'm going to be using email to communicate with you. I'm going to be using Canvas announcements and maybe do a video announcement in Canvas so you can still see my face even if we may be in different locations. I may be using Canvas Inbox, which will also go to your email as well. So making sure that you know and you inform those students of those expectations for checking email, checking Canvas as well. Review your course schedule to determine priorities, okay? There may be things that you look at your objectives, these are the things I have to cover. There may be things that you do have to remove for the sake of, okay, if I don't get to this, okay, my students are still meeting the objectives. That's how we want to do with all of our courses that we teach, or these are the outcomes. These are what students are able to demonstrate, but we may have to change our own modality and how they get that content and figure that out with that. We talked earlier of that. We're now losing a week of the semester. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you're losing 3 class sessions. Tuesday, Thursday, you're losing 2 class sessions. Because that is an extra week of spring break for students. That's a week for us to be here, be available, to work together with our community to look at our plans for teaching remotely. And then posting those changes, like when you think about your syllabus, sharing that with your students. And it's okay to say, I don't know if this is going to work. This is what I'm going to try for this. Because this is unknown for me as well. This morning was talking about how, for those former middle school English teachers, this feels like a dystopian novel for me. Of like every day I wake up with something new that I never expected. And then, talking about communication, several of us who already teach online completely, like this is when you're going and you're putting things online, communication and making it the format easy to access. If they are confused and they don't know where to go, that's really difficult for them. So if you have already decided, I'm going asynchronously, which means I'm going to record some lectures, I'm going to post discussions, they're going to do it at their own time, you've got to be consistent in the way that you put it in Canvas. And we will help you through that, because that is really key of making sure that it's consistent. And if you call something, you know, in your lecture something, that the file is also called the same thing. Because, like I said, to provide that support for the students as well. So making sure that you are in alignment there. And then consider strategies for using technology tools. Those who know me know I love ed tech. I love using technology for learning purposes. That's what I have done for many, many years. But it's about the pedagogy first, and then the technology to support that pedagogy. So you need to be thinking about, I want to continue to have class discussions. And so this is the way that we're going to do this using this tool. I want to continue to provide lectures. This is the way that we need to do that. And with that, thinking about lecture content. Like some of you may decide that you want to continue to do synchronous sessions where you're all together in a virtual room of some capacity, you know, thinking about, you know, how to kind of divide that up like you typically do. I'm going to share some things 10, 15 minutes, then we're going to have a discussion. And we'll talk about how to use those tools that we have available to do that. If you're doing online content and with videos, engagement drops off after about 5 minutes. So thinking about, you might need to do smaller chunks of video recordings when it comes to, if I'm going to put it online, make it available to students for them to watch at their own time. When Al was talking about contacting the students and looking at thinking through if they don't have access, you may have to record your sessions. Zoom will allow you to record your sessions. Google Meet, which Al and I, our focus are on the tools that's institutionally accepted and adopted at Lipscomb. But like Google Meet, we do have Google tools. We're not really going to get into like Google Drive and folders and all that, but Google Meet has now like upped where you can now record it. So if you have already been using those for like Google Meet for office hours, you can record those sessions now. And we'll talk through how to use the tools to be able to get that recording link to be able to send to students as well. You need to think through this asynchronous and synchronous thing. And one of the things, I just came across a Google form that someone has already created that you share with students. Oh, there we go. Thanks, because I'm talking about Google and my Google phone's picking up on that. So there's a form where it says, do you have access to a computer? Do you have access? And I'm going to share that on a resource that you all can adapt to be able to use and send out to your students as well. But anything with technology, those of us who use technology have plans A through double Z, because sometimes technologies may not work the way that you anticipated. We talked about the capabilities of Zoom. Now everyone's going to be using Zoom. I hope that, I really am sad I did not buy stock a couple of weeks ago in Zoom, because the stock has increased. We've been watching that. But thinking through, if this doesn't work, and I'll share a funny post that I saw from a professor who teaches quantum mechanics, I think, about the plan from, we're going to use Zoom. If that doesn't work, we're going to use Google Meet. If that doesn't work, then we'll go to CB radio. And then if that doesn't work, then I'm going to move into a remote wilderness and I'll have this. And then if there's a nuclear explosion, you need, like a Faraday tube or I can't remember. But anyway, like he was like, so yes, we're going to keep learning. So thinking through, we have to be able to have alternate plans. If you are going to do live sessions using Zoom, then think about, it's best to stick to Central Standard Time, even though our students may be in different time zones. That way it's consistent with Lipscomb time. We'll just call it Lipscomb time. We're going to do it on Lipscomb time. If you teach a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class at 10 o'clock, 10 to 10:50, you need to keep that synchronous session to Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 o'clock, 10 to 10:50. Because if Ken is teaching an 11 o'clock class and Ann is in both of our classes, and Ken and I have both decided that we want to do synchronous meetings, Ann needs to be able to attend both sessions. So if you're going to do live remote sessions, then you have to keep it at the time frame of your class. We cannot go dipping into somebody else's class. If you're going to do it asynchronously, then you have more flexibility of when the students can get online to be able to do that. And like I said, you may have to record your sessions if you are going to do the live class sessions, so that way they'll be able to access that at a time that works for them. Accessibility. I'll mention this. We have been working closely with Leslie. That was one of the first things I thought, and there are things that we still think of. I'm like, oh my God, we were talking about last date of attendance if a student decides to drop. With Canvas, it's, you can get in there and you can see. You can also look through kind of email communication if there's any academic content. There's a list that those of us who have taught online for a while in different formats that we can share with you on that. But accessibility, it still applies. Now, most of the things that are in process right now, like the students receive a study guide, they have a note taker, that can still take place the way that it has been handled, because I think they have certain things that they do for that. If you need extended time on assignments, you can do that in Canvas, and you can designate that I want to be able to give this person extended time, and they can have this long in Canvas. And we will be providing that support and how to do that if you've not done that before. Their office will still be running the testing center in some capability. They're figuring that out. So, because this is new for all of us, but they're still working on that. Leslie says, if you have questions, reach out to her. Some of the students' accommodations may need to change a little bit because it's now remote and not in class. And so she may have to take that on a case-by-case situation. But from this perspective, those of us who teach online for all of our classes just about, when we do the online development, it's a long process. It's not just, I'm just going to slap some stuff up on Canvas. It's about really making that alignment piece happen. And sometimes, you know, like thinking about accessibility, which is really important, like students need screen readers or captioning. Anytime that we show videos, we're supposed to have captioning, whether it's face-to-face or online by the accessibility guidelines. I'm going to be creating on this resource website, like what's some things that you can do on Canvas to get ahead, because it's better to get ahead than to like later on, like, oh, now I have a student who needs this, or they have a screen reader who needs this. So we'll be providing that support. But we're at this point, I'm said, this is kind of a triage situation of being able to get the content and that academic continuity to our students so we can keep teaching and they can keep learning as well. Okay, let's see if there's, okay, remote proctoring. This last week, we do not have a service at this point where we like lock down browser. So IT and myself, we've been in a lot of demos on remote proctoring options, and we're working on trying to get that. I think the contract is with General Counsel right now of a service that we have selected. We'll provide some training and some support on what that looks like, but it's also, the tools that we have, you can also think through creatively how you might be able to kind of change and adapt some of your assignments or assessments for making sure that students are not cheating. I have a funny meme that someone sent me about that last night. But one of the things with the remote proctoring, we have enabled, as of yesterday, quiz log auditing for every single course. It has been a feature option that you are able to go in and in every course access it, but we have went ahead and made it where it's available now, so we don't have to worry about that piece. And what that does, that quiz log auditing, if you create a test or a quiz in Canvas, it will do an audit of the students, and it will say, Mike was on this question for 4 minutes, and then he went away to this tab, and then he came back and answered, or he read through all of them and skipped questions 16 and 17, and then, oh, he went to this, he left the browser again. So it provides that input for you so you can kind of see that in Canvas, and I love that we have that tool available. You can also think through like some creative options. Some people who may have smaller classes, maybe you might want to do an oral exam using Zoom, where the students are there and you can ask them questions, or maybe they might demonstrate something for you. We're going to think through that. Canvas and Panopto, if you're having your students do the test and quizzes asynchronously, you can have them record their screen and their webcam as they're taking, and then they would submit that video recording to you as well. One of the features with Canvas Studio and Panopto are that students can also be recording and submitting things as well. And we are working on providing student support and resources. I'm going to get my faculty ones finished first next week, and then we'll be able to have instructions for students if you want them to use the recording features to be able to submit things as well. Let's see. Yeah, so it's creative options with remote proctoring. When we get the lockdown browser feature implemented, we'll provide more information there. Tools to consider. Okay, so Zoom is the one that a lot of you, now I found out today that the links didn't work. We'll work on that. If you, and some of you all, your browser cache kind of prevented certain things. So we have support, which is why we had you bring your laptops here. If you've not been able to access Zoom, we've got support here to make sure that you have that before you leave here today. If you have a pro account with Zoom, which Lipscomb has purchased so many pro accounts, then your pro account's just fine as it is. Nothing's going to change there. If you've not had an account, because we do not have any more pro accounts, you'll be signed up with a basic account. The limit right now is 40 minutes. Now, we're in talks with Zoom about, because they've already opened this up for K through 12 teachers, to be able to extend that during a situation like this. If it doesn't lift, our recommendation, which will be provided on the resource, is you'll be in the session for 40 minutes, have everyone leave, including yourself, and then you can come back, take a 5-minute break, which, you know, if you're a 75-minute class, it might be nice if you're sitting at home just to get up, take a personal break, then come back. We're also working on the HIPAA agreement for that, and IT is working with Zoom to be able to get that. So a lot of behind the scenes with the tools of trying to support what you may need for some of those tools. Yeah, resources. So I'm working on a website. This is like my bare bones. Now that we have an extra week, I can actually get this finished this upcoming week on spring break. This website will walk you through Canvas, Zoom, Panopto. I'm going to have a tab for other tools that you can look at, but we're trying to stick to the tools that the CTL with 2 people plus 600 faculty and staff we can get through. And so that website will be available for you all. On that website, I'm going to be creating a shared doc because my email, I'm so sorry for those I've not responded to this week. My email's been a little out of control, and for the people who know me, know I do not like that at all. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to have a Google Doc that we all have access to, that we can crowdsource resources that come across our inbox, because I mean, like, most of my emails are from vendors of like, we're now making this available, and we're now making this, and this is now free. And I'm like, I can't, sort through this right now. And so being able to kind of crowdsource, I think I sent Jill Kirby like an anatomy and physiology online thing yesterday. So you'll be able to add those resources there, because this is where we can help community and build on some things. I'm also creating a Canvas course where I'm going to be able to use that. I have asked some faculty to be my model students. We'll see if they're model students or not, if they do what they're supposed to do, because I can't currently record any of my current classes because of FERPA and grades. So now I get to have some fun, and they all have given me permission to share we'll see what kind of feedback they get with what they submit in the course. I'm going to make it humorous if I can, to lighten it a little bit, but it will be I just now learned how to spell Canvas. What do I do? I've never logged on. So we're going to walk step by step of exactly, and I'm going to have short video in the Lipscomb instance. There are a great lot of tools out there and videos and guidelines that you can read through, but it may not look like Lipscomb's Canvas. So I'm going to create this of kind of some best practices with some short video clips using our faculty students as a model for you all. We're also asking, I have a sign-up list up here for people who would be willing to volunteer to kind of be a faculty fellow. How many of you already use Canvas or Zoom or one of these tools in your courses now? Okay, look, you just got a whole bunch of new friends. He's a special case. Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm asking, because we have loved the support that we have received through emails, texts, everything, of people like, well, what can I do to help? And so I am asking, let's help each other. Let's love on our neighbors at our Lipscomb community. As Al mentioned, this may be your mission, and this service to our institution in a situation like this where we are going to need to help each other through this and think through this. So if you're willing to do that, we would love that as well. CTL schedule. With having the extra week for us, because students are on spring break, we'll be back here. We are going to have the CTL open starting at 8 o'clock every morning. Some days will be into the evening. We're going to work and kind of finalize that schedule, because one of my passions is supporting adjuncts and being able to be open for them. We'll also have some weekend hours to be available for them to help set that up. So be on the lookout of what that schedule is, which means that I had yesterday proposed, because I didn't know the extra week at the time, that I would be available this upcoming Sunday, but due to a family situation and a death in our family, our plans may change this upcoming week, so may not be I'll be available by email, but I may not be available in person, or Zoom. We can Zoom if needed. But we really wanted you to think through this week, how am I going to adapt? What are some things I need to be thinking about? And then next week, or not next week, but the following week when you come back, those are going to be for department meetings, college meetings, for you to kind of figure out a game plan, but then also more training, more support, one-on-one. What can we do to help that week? This afternoon, we have several breakout sessions for you to choose from. Al will be leading the Canvas 101 and EZEL 109 at 1, 2, and 3. So those are hour-long sessions. Zoom Panopto Canvas Studio, Julia Osteen and Forrest Doddington in the College of Education will be leading those at 1, 2, and 3 in EZEL 136. The one-on-one support in the CTL, myself, and I have about 5 or 6 other faculty members who have volunteered. Thank you to those faculty members. We'll be in the CTL. This is a time change. It's 1 to 3 now instead of 1 to 4 because I need to leave to attend Mindy Fernandez's father's funeral this afternoon. So that's going to be 1 to 3. And then we also have a session in the library on information literacy. So thinking through the electronic resources, things that you may need to be sharing with students as well. Those will be offered at 1:30, 2:30, and 3:30 in Beeman 207. So those are that's another option for you this afternoon. So there are lots of options. You may have a college or department meeting at the same time as well. We're going to open it up for some questions on that you have, but also I'm going to, there we go. We'll be available after this session, like to make sure that you can log into Zoom and get that set up, which is why if you haven't tried Zoom or Canvas Studio and Panopto are just have access, I think, mainly to unless Panopto has where you can download it onto your computer as well. But wanting to make sure that your devices are ready. We'll also be in the CTL that week to make sure that your devices are ready as well. Questions that you may have, and there are microphones around, but also because we are recording this and we do have people who may be live streaming this as well, we may repeat the questions so that way they're able to hear as well. So questions you may have. Okay, first roll of toilet paper right here.
This is maybe more of a comment or observation. I encountered an issue with a couple of students the first semester. I had been communicating with all the students in the classroom via Canvas email, and I noticed a couple students didn't respond. And I asked them about it in class one day, and came to find that there is an option within the student Canvas account that you can unlink the auto forward to your regular Lipscomb email, and for some reason that was unlinked, so.
Yeah, so we'll walk through for you, if you decide that you're going to use Canvas for your communication, like the settings that you need to set for yourself, that because I have certain settings that in Canvas that automatically come to my email without me logging into Canvas, but also for students, for you to share with students of like, this is the way I've decided to communicate, and these are the settings that you need to enable to make sure that you receive those communications. Great question.
This is sort of a hidden secret. I don't know where it should be put to tell everybody, but if you go into your just regular Gmail, there are distribution lists there. And if you say you teach an accounting class, if you go into where it's who you're going to send it to, if you type AC dash, then it's going to start showing all the accounting courses for multiple semesters. So as you type more and more of your course identifier, MA-34, whatever, then it will bring up that course membership. So you can be assured that that's your current class role as a distribution list. And that's out of Gmail, not Canvas, but that's out of Gmail. The big challenge is it may show you spring 2019, fall 2019, spring 2020. So don't send fan mail to people that were in your class last fall.
Questions? Other questions? Yes.
What is your advice about those of us who are already teaching online classes in terms of the schedule? Like my class has already been laid out, so it doesn't need to be adapted next week.
Yeah, so if your class
Carry
is,
on as business as usual.
that's right, if you have that. Now, if you do teach an online class and you had assignments due next week, you may need to adapt that for the students. Also a note, we talked about earlier, the graduate programs, and Randy can speak more to this with the graduate programs, but communicate the modality that you're doing. Some programs have already decided we're going completely online from this point on. I'll let you speak more to that, Randy.
Yeah, so we may have some graduate students thinking we don't care as much about them as we do our undergraduate students, because we say you can come back to campus and have classes there. Okay. But the reality is we nuanced it in this way so that graduate programs who have things going on either in senior projects or whatever that require students to be in a laboratory, for instance, they can't do that and finish their degree without being on campus in that lab. We have some graduate faculty who would just prefer to have them on campus, and that's fine. If you have graduate students who are not comfortable coming to class, and that's how you want to deliver your graduate course, then we need to help them and make accommodations for them. And so you can do Zoom with them, you can do whatever, but we do need to allow the graduate students to say, I don't want to come to campus to class, and we'll have to accommodate that need. But there were specific instances of needs in certain graduate programs and courses, and that's the reason we decided to nuance it that way and allow those graduate areas to come on and be here in the evenings. So we may have undergraduate students move back into the dorms. The dorms will remain open. Okay, so we may have undergraduate students who want to stay in the dorms. All the international students are going to be in their dorm rooms anyway. Some of our students don't have a place to go, so they will be returning to campus. So they may be wanting to talk to you face to face because they're on campus. That's okay if you're okay with that. We want to protect your health as well. So if you're uncomfortable with that, you can do it by phone, do it by Zoom, whatever, but there may be students on campus who knock on your door and say, hey, I need some help, here I am, because they're going to be able to be on campus. And so in their dorm room. I mean, their dorm room is their apartment. They've paid rent on it for 16 weeks, and they have purchased food for 16 weeks. And so they're entitled to be here for that length of time, or we would have to refund their money for that. And so we need to make that available to them so that they can be here if that's what they need to do. And I mean, Craig's here, he can correct. This is what I said to the last group. So if I'm wrong, I was wrong with both groups, and I don't want to confuse you with a correct answer. That would be unfortunate. And so, sorry, Shannon.
Just ask a follow-up about what I said. So what I'm asking
Wait,
is.
can I want to speak into the graduate thing
Okay.
question first, because I am getting emails from graduate students, and I'm sitting there answering one while this conversation's going on. If you direct a graduate program, contact your students ASAP, okay? Because they're asking, why are we not changing? Why am I in class, or why am I not in class? You just need to tell them what you're doing. A couple of colleges have done a really good job of this already, so I'm not getting them from them. But I am getting emails from students who are a little confused, understandably. I mean, I don't blame them for being confused. Why would you protect your your undergraduate students, but you're not protecting us? So speaking to Randy's point, some of the programs are finding it difficult, maybe, I want you to really think through it. Some of them are finding it difficult to be remote. So if you need to tell your graduate students, you're not going to be remote, you're going to be in class, and here's why, okay? And then you have to make accommodations for them, and this is where it gets difficult. Have to make accommodations for them to say, okay, you don't want to be there, I get it, you're afraid to come in, I get it, so we will then provide some way for you to accommodate you remotely. And I don't know what that looks like, but here's where it gets a little messy. But to Randy's point, that's why we did not just say all graduate programs have to be are remote. Because there's some instances where you got practicums and internships and things that are going on that just make it really hard. But you've got to communicate that to your students, because I'm getting tired of answering anything.
But Shannon had a
Yeah,
clarification.
my question was about undergraduate fully online classes. Do we need to revise the rest of the semester to build in a second week of spring break?
Okay. Your question is important for everyone in the room, not just for that, because the bottom line is you are losing a week of instruction. Okay, you're losing a week of instruction because you will lose an MWF or a TR on the extra week of spring break. So for those of you who are teaching first on ground courses, and I guess even your course, Shannon, but they're not going to be participating in that course during that week. And so you're going to have to go back and figure out what you're going to cut off or how you're going to combine in creative ways the content if you absolutely need to cover every single thing you were going to do. All right? So my math people in here, put your fingers in your ears, because I know that there are some areas that I would cover in trig or calculus that I would go, it's fun to do it. But you know what? I'm not going to be able to do it this time, and we're just going to let it go. And life will go on. They can all go to heaven. That's what I tell them anyway. It's all okay. I'll breathe into this paper bag, and we'll just all go on. It's just the way it is. And so you may have to do that. And I think Hope mentioned a few minutes ago where I think that is especially important is in courses that have multiple sections of the same course. I think it would be useful if those teachers get together and go, you know what, let's leave this little piece out this time so that we're all kind of covering the same thing for our students. So Shannon, in the context of your totally online, you probably are going to have to go back, and I don't know what, you may have some things built in that it's okay, I don't know, but you may have to go back and reassess and account for that week that you won't have as an instructional week.
Help me understand the reasoning behind that. I thought creating an extra week of spring break was so we could transition our on-ground classes and be ready to go. But my online class doesn't require me to be on campus or do anything.
Well, I mean, I think the rationale was simply to give the faculty as a whole opportunity to prepare for this. And so yours might be a casualty, your course might be a casualty because of that, and I'm sorry. But it would have been challenging to have said, if you have an online course, you're going to still be expected to participate in that. I mean, there have to just be sometimes some comprehensive blanket things that are done, and there are casualties because of that. I mean, there are casualties because we're doing it for everybody. So,
if we are moving some things forward from this second week, would it be appropriate to make some assignments available to them for those who, the 3 maybe out of 60 that actually will do work ahead. So rather than having it all in a crunch, that if they want to go ahead and work ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of an individual thing. I think I would be very careful, okay, and I'll say this again. I would be very careful about setting things up that students feel like is an inequity and unfair. I mean, they're suffering in this too. I mean, our students are here on ground because they don't want to do this online. Okay, so this is going to be real challenging for many of them to do as well. So I would just be very thoughtful and careful. If you want to put things out there that you have had to cut and say, if you want to go out and look at these things, that's fine. That won't be on the exam. You won't be assessed on these things. But if here's opportunities, if you want to be energetic and go out and do that, you can certainly do it. I would just be real careful about making sure things are equal, if you can, or equivalent. In mathematics, those are two different things, okay? Equivalent. And so a faculty member asked me, he said, well, what if I have enough on-ground students who are still here that they could actually come to my class and I could do the Zoom thingy? I said, because your students who I can't come to class are going to say, well, they had an unfair advantage because they were being able to sit right there at the teacher's feet and adore the teacher, and I wasn't able to do that. And so I think we got to be real thoughtful and careful about that. And because I don't think they're looking for those things, but the grading piece is going to be very sensitive this time. And I would just admonish you to also be real thoughtful about that piece of it as well. Just be considerate.
Kara, I have a clarifying question. The extra week of spring break is only for undergraduate classes, right? The extra week of spring break is not for graduate classes? It said in the president's email yesterday.
I think it said undergraduate,
Yeah,
Graduate classes will
I think
receive.
that's right.
graduate class, yeah.
Yeah, I believe
That's right.
it said.
Yeah.
That's right. It is.
Because I know several who teach like term 2 classes already, spring break doesn't even account into that.
So which makes your communication to your graduate students like now really important, because they're going to be coming back next week or not coming back, however you want to do it, because they are expected to be back next week, but the undergraduates won't be. But Shanna, your issue is with an undergraduate course anyway, right? The online, it was an online.
A lot of online courses
Yeah.
in our undergraduate courses
Yeah.
that have already been laid out, they don't really need to be revised unless.
Yeah.
we need to-
And again, you might be able to totally accommodate that schedule you currently have with losing the week and kind of doing things without having to go in and make major changes to that. You don't want to upset those students. You can figure it out as you go along. I mean, you know, it has to be.
I just want to say something in general here. First of all, thank you all. Okay, it's interesting to me. I've been at both sessions or part of both sessions, and yesterday it's kind of the feeling was, oh yeah, Craig, we can do this. We're good to go. Today I'm kind of getting, this is what this means, right? And I get that. Okay, it does mean a world change for us. I was telling Randy a while ago. We were in the back, probably talking too loudly and messing you guys up. But I was saying, we have been so in the weeds, and Randy and Hope and CTL and my office, we have been so in the weeds of this and trying to get this to go that we haven't really stepped back. But if you step back and think about what is happening here, and then what is happening all in higher education all across the country, we're not the only ones doing this. And then you step back and look at everything that's happening in the United States. I don't know what I'm going to do without sports for the next few weeks. This is going to be really tough for me. This is a big moment in our history here, and a big moment in who we are at Lipscomb. And it's kind of it's a little bit earth-shattering, and you're living in it in a very real way, and I'm living in it, you're living in it, and we're trying to help you get prepared for that. I'm really glad we have the extra week after spring break to help do that, because this is not just click, it's done. It does take a little bit of work, and that was the intention. But let me tell you again, I really, really appreciate the way you guys are stepping into this. I mean, you're doing a great job, and you're going forth with a lot of courage, so I appreciate it. So thanks.
comments.
We had it for you all.
Yeah, okay, so there was a question earlier about advising and pre-registration. Okay, so we're working on that. Again, if students are back in the dorms when it becomes advising time and they knock on your door and you want to advise them face-to-face, that's fine. Go ahead and do that. We'll be working out ways, maybe it's through Zoom. There will have to be some sort of scheduling component for students to sign up for appointments instead of signing up on your door like they do sometimes now. So we'll have to figure out some sort of virtual way for them to do that so you're available when they need you to be to advise. So we're trying to get that piece worked out. Pre-registration, as we mentioned yesterday, will occur through Banner, which they're accustomed to. So they'll have all of their my degree plans and all that available to them on their devices like they do now. So we're hoping that it's all going to be bumpy, but we're hoping that won't be as bumpy as it would have been. The students had not been trained on Campus Nexus. It would have been impossible to have used Campus Nexus. So there's small favor here. We're able to use Banner for this. The other part is the Academic Success Center piece, the tutoring piece, the peer-to-peer tutoring, the math labs, the writing studio. We're figuring out ways that we can do that in a virtual kind of way as well. So we were hoping that our peer-to-peer tutors, the students who work in those areas, will be willing to be available through Zoom or whatever to help students. I have a couple of other ideas that we're investigating I'm not going to tell you about now in case they don't work out. But we'll do our best to provide the services that down there that we have provided. Accommodations, as you've already talked about, an important piece. And so I have a couple of ideas I'm looking at there that might make some of those a little bit easier. Actually, some of those can diminish some ways with this kind of setup. And so anyway, so we're just working through all of the pieces, and we can't remember everything. And so when we don't send an email in the right way to you, we don't mean to do anything other than we just didn't think about it to do it in the right way. So there's nothing personal about any of this. And there are a lot of moving parts as we try to work this out. Next week will be great, but it's going to be very busy for most people on campus trying to get ready for that first week when all the undergraduates begin to try to do this in a remote kind of way. So anyway, thank you.
Yes. So the help desk, that's how most students have already been using that. There's a help button in Canvas that then will go to the specific Canvas support as well. And myself and 2 people in IT are the ones who manage those tickets. Although we have only had, in the 2 years we've had Canvas, we have 168 tickets total. So, but yes. Al?
The great majority of the tickets that she's referenced are questions like, how much is test 2 worth?
Yes, yes.
When is assignment 6 due? So we strongly encourage them to ask you first,
Right, right.
okay? But that's the great majority of the questions that we have received.
He's not joking.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah. So remind them to ask you first.
right.
And your skill set, if they can't log in or something
Or
appears to
I
be broken.
can't see this, that probably means that you have not hit a green publish button somewhere. So, yeah. Question?
I just wanted to verify, you mentioned the 16th, you'll have like the guidance session with CDL, will that also?
No, it's the week of the 23rd. Next week will be spring break, but the week of the 23rd, and we will send out a schedule. Al and I will work on that this afternoon and send that out to you. But CTL will be open as regular hours on that week, but we will also extend some evening hours, and then we'll also have some weekend hours as well.
What's the latest word on the student scholarship?
I don't know. I mean, no events right now have been canceled to my knowledge, but we'll see.
Here we go.
Craig's going to come in and speak into that. I was going to go ahead.
Student Scholars Conference or Symposium. My understanding is that we are really moving toward very rapidly, if we're not already there, canceling all events on campus until through April. Yeah, April 30th, yeah. There's some wishy-washiness on this, as there is in everything in Chrisman 300 at the moment, because there's so much, things change so quickly and it's very fluid. But that's my understanding. I told Flora yesterday, is Flora in here?
She gets left.
Okay. I told Flora yesterday to go ahead and plan as if it's going to happen, and that's, I think, why she sent out that email yesterday. But at this point, I will tell you, I'm very doubtful that that will happen. Yes.
Okay, this might be premature to announcement, but since Laura's not here, our committee met this morning.
Uh-huh.
We're thinking about proposing that we do something on the park.
I think that's perfect. Yeah, I think that's perfect. And again, the creativity there, or what you might even be able to do online or something, kind of would be really good. It's the tragedy, and don't get offended by this, the tragedy to me in this is not the fact that you're having to do this or we're having to do this. The tragedy in this is the students. And when I yesterday I went to my car, it was late, and they were out, the baseball team was out there. Their season's pretty much over, okay? You have seniors out there, and they had apparently a moment of get together and kind of sadness, and then they just started hooping it up and having a good time, We have seniors that are here that have been through the whole 3.5, 4, whatever years here, and their senior year has just gotten crashed, okay? Athletes, musicians, people all across campus. So as you're working on this, be thinking about them. This is really, I know there's going to be this real temptation to be I hate to say this, to be a stickler on some things, okay? But it's not their fault, okay? They're in a situation that they didn't intend to be, just like you are. And when you're having to make a judgment there, judge in favor of the student, okay, if you can, okay? I'm not telling you to let go of all academic rigor at all, but there's just, they're in a tough situation. And like I say, that's what hurts me. So anyway.
The only thing I was going to mention, because this was a question before too, and that dealt with final exams, and I think Hope mentioned that right now the final exam schedule is as it is. All the policies that wrap around final exams are still intact as well. So if you're doing something where a student could finish the course early, an early final exam is still not allowed unless we come back and change that, and we may. Right now, all those policies that wrap around finals are still in place until we notify you in other ways. Okay?
All right, we will be around for if you need some tech support, also questions as well. We'll get through this. Thank you all for what you do and what you bring to our students every single day. And I guess Godspeed as we go, move forth and prosper, right? So thank you all so much.